Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Happy Easter to you. And by the skin of my teeth, I'm actually with you right on time. I didn't think I would be. But anyway, good afternoon. Welcome to Nature Folklore Sessions, 17th of April, Easter Sunday. And I think I've got the video uploaded. Here we go. Let's make a start. This is where I was having the tech issues. Hello. Hi, thanks everyone for joining me, and it's our weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space and expressing inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, art, craft, performance, and problem solving. And today it's part 3 of our Permaculture Living series. And as usual, on a Sunday, Easter Sunday afternoon, I do From Resurrection to the Three Trais. And there's a bit of a bardic picture to get this on the roll. Guests today, we've got some fantastic guests. We've got Siobhan Debrier of Wild Irish Retreats, and a very essential poet. And there's a lovely picture of there. She's actually in the back room at the moment. We got the lovely B. Smith with a lovely apt poem for today. And the very following her is the hubby, the very popular Tony Cookson. There, he's with us again. And the almost resident, lovely nature poet, Chandler Nichols. We'll have her later on. And as usual, these nature folklore sessions, the videos and the tree sanctuary support brought to you due to support by you wonderful subscribers through the Patreon there and PayPal donators. And I'll give the link later, the Buy Me a Coffee people. And I know some subscribers are with us or will be with us during the show. So thank you very much for your continued support, because without it, I wouldn't be able to pay the subscriptions and putting the show on for you today. So let's see which early birds are actually giving up. Well, I wouldn't say giving up, with us on this Easter Sunday. I think it's such a privilege and an honor that you're joining. There's Terry Slack Hardwick's with us. Happy Easter from rural Maryland is here. And I think Little Wing pulled in from YouTube a little earlier. There you go. Good afternoon. Greetings from Manchester, England. So we got a few of you warming up to that, and it's lovely to see you've got started. Easter Sunday. Well, what I have done the last couple of years is I presented usually my Humpty Dumpty and resurrection story, but I'm going to avoid that one today. So anyway, there's a Humpty Dumpty if you just don't know who Humpty Dumpty is. And as I say, do excuse if I'm pausing every now and again, because within about 3 seconds of coming on air, I used 3 computers for this show. 2 of them weren't working until the very last second, and one of them was just starting to give up right now. So anyway, this year I'm going to find time to possibly, I hope, to make a separate video for subscribers of that Humpty Dumpty story. But to give you a brief one, it was when I was 5 years old. Sorry, I haven't got my 5 years old picture like I usually put up. I was thrown on stage, and it was an outdoor local talent show. And I didn't know what the heck it was all about. But on this talent show, I recited Humpty Dumpty as I just learned that at school. But after the first verse, trying to find my position on the camera here, sorry. After the first verse, I actually broke into my version of the resurrection, as I've been thinking about that since I've been told the story after I'd just come from my first Sunday school session that my stepmother at the time insisted that I go to. So for this year, instead, my thoughts seem to be currently on forwarding of the recognition of things we've been talking about the last few weeks, and is the implementation of the rights of nature. Let's give a rights of nature picture if I got it. There you go. There we go. Exploring the rights of nature as encouraged by, it was actually encouraged by Sarah Humble, as you remember, over the last couple of weeks, and by her words and social posts, especially on All Is Well. But for me, my current main dream of resurrection is a return to recognition of the rights of nature on this earth overall. And I'll be talking about the 3 strains of the bark too, and how I personally vision using them in several situations, which is quite linked to our permaculture and respect for the earth. So when I apply the 3 strains in our approach to nature, I think we do have the melancholy of the dominance that humans seem to have of it. And then there's the dream of the healing of this and the joy when there's caring, respect, sharing, and balancing interdependence happens, which is the things we've been talking about with permaculture living. And so hopefully one day the balance that we have is greater than it is today. Now, talking about the rights of nature perhaps has a risk of sounding like the theme of a banner-waving protest march by a bunch of rice and veg hippies, maybe like these characters. That's not a bunch of rice and oh dear. Okay, I got wrong to picture up. Never mind. That's the way it's going to go today, I think. Sorry. And I had a lovely rice and veg picture anyway. But I visualized the word resurrection along with the word regeneration. And regeneration to me is a vision of picking up the debris of before, reweaving it back into the living web of life. And before understanding the spiritual intent of the rights of nature and our attempts to live with this, I believe we have to shift our psychic motivation from being part of an extractive and accumulating culture and economy. And water so important, as I'm finding out right now, and towards becoming much more passionate beings that are living and working towards more regenerative, respectful culture and economy. So referring to how I've soapboxed similar things like this within other nature folklore editions, I believe this is about flattening the pyramid into circles. I couldn't find a very good flattening the pyramid one. And well, through tech issues, the flattening the pyramid photo hasn't come up. But this afternoon, I'm thinking about how we can resurrect ourselves from living on Earth as treating everything as objects and things into considering everything around us that we see and sense as being part of this close connected web of life ecosystem that we have on this Earth. Some people think that we can expand into the whole universe. That's not such the thing. But my living passions, as you know, are woodlands and trees and water. Here's a lovely example of that. You'll be familiar. And that's what I've used in my background. I've just got rid of me for a minute so you can see. And for a few minutes now, I'd like to focus on water. And indigenous people around the world have a very bonded connection to freshwater rivers and lakes. And here in Ireland and Scotland and UK, parts of Europe too, people look to ancient connections, but it seems they look very much more to the stone sites as being their link to their deep ancient ancestry. A lot of people say, okay, that's where water flow, that's where the water lines are, same say under the stones the fire lines go. But around the world, many indigenous clans and tribes, they look to the water as being their connected source of ancestry. Oh, sorry, excuse the tongue twisting of their personal. Oh, I'll get to it in a moment. Anyway, regular viewers to Nature Folklore will be familiar that all of this is my living faith, the connection to water, much more so than the stone sites. And rivers and lakes are named by tribes too. And the naming is what gives them identity that connects to them. We may have a feeling with this when we go to our holy wells, especially the ones known as the blessed wells that don't have saint names, that there is an attachment to the people, their culture, and the healing that goes on with them. Now, these nature-linked people, they believe that humans and the sources of water, they're just totally woven together. And that's a nice phrase around that. And the rivers, that's really it. The rivers belong to us as we belong to the river. And I think I've got something that says similar there. So we got that. But unfortunately, it seems that the structure of English common law has become a template of human law and order around much of the world. And to me, that's a pyramid form of order. And it has an elite apex. And then you've got the layers below the pyramid that get wider and wider as you get towards the bottom of the pyramid. And the bottom of the pyramid, to me, that's the enslaved part. That's, the bottom is enforced to support everything above it. And well, you may regard by now, I just absolutely have no love of pyramids whatsoever. But here in Ireland, there's an ancestry of the earlier Brehon law. And that seems to have been formed in relation to an ancient origin of counselling, people coming together as councils. And so everything's managed in a counselling kind of way. And that's it. The pyramid scheme, that's it. I don't like those at all, but that's the symbolism a lot of people follow. And here I got an imagery, if it can come up. There we go. The Brehon, sort of an imagery, artist imagery of a Brehon law council. But the English common law pyramid structure is very restrictive upon indigenous conscience, morality, and their ways. And this is shown, I think, through our languages that we use today. I often speak of how Latinized languages, they're focused on things. It's all about talking about things. If you go into the Gaelic languages, older ones, they seem to focus more on the conditions of what's around us. Certainly the original Ogham, I believe, was really as a prompt language rather than the letter language that people play with now. And there also seems to be a general focus of the difference between English law and the Brehon law. It's certainly, we can connect this to how we value our rivers and lakes. Now, within the common law thinking, it's like as if it's us and the rivers, and it's as if the rivers are objects and the rivers are even slaves to us. And within indigenous thinking, us and rivers, they're actually one. We're all together. We're all part of the same community. Now, common law seems to be about rules, break the wall rules, branding of criminality sets in, and it's followed by a bit of barbaric punishment. Now, Indigenous council, it's all about values. And there's a nice old picture of a council. And it's not rules, it's about values, not rules. So there are processes of mediation and decisions about acts of retribution that, when applied, attempt to return balance of values. It's not about torturing people. Now, folklore to me is this is what folklore is. It's an expression of retribution and balancing values. So I feel the stories that we tell are about. So to me, folklore provides wonderful vision and mentoring as a guide for living. And this includes permaculture living. That's the theme of this current series. There's some people doing some permaculture living there. And folklore stories, they can be fun. They are fun. They're entertaining. So let's not dismiss that. But I feel that what is going on between the characters, landscapes, and the deeds, all these features that come into the folklore stories, it isn't those that guide us. It's not the actual characters, landscapes, and their deeds. They shouldn't be guiding us. To me, it's what's going on in between these things. And that's how I understand the difference of language about things versus a language about conditions and sensory reactions. Now, before the days of scribing, writing, and printing, folklore was the only resource of education for us humans, from what I can gather, from what I can work out. So why do we feel a need to disconnect from the realm of folklore, of life itself, and replace it with learned academia? Now, personally grown, when I hear and read people, they do this on the social media, follow the science, stick to the facts, because everything we call science and facts today seem to start with inspirational visions that we worked at with our hearts and hands and minds. Let's get something, there's a bit of folklore education going on there. And there was this book of the visions of science. I don't know if you can read the phrase there, but it's sort of saying something I'm trying to say here. Anyway, sadly, I think when we've verified something, we seem to dump the original visions and call them nonsense. Have these visions. You get someone like Einstein who had visions and ended up calculating things out of that. Were the Einstein visions totally thrown away? Oh, that's useless. That's nonsense. That's what I'm saying. That's where the disconnection comes in. So within the indigenous human beings, within the living realm of indigenous humans, it seems each person's identity is linked to the realm of folklore that is guiding us. And I believe everything that we do is umbilically connected, umbilically linked to that. But to some pyramid thinking people, they believe they should be the king or the queen of all of this. So the unseen realm of life, I believe, is the source of our deep ancestral link. And we're back to the rivers again, as we sense with the rivers and lakes. So here in Ireland, the rivers have been named after goddesses. We have Bowen. Here's an artist's impression of Bowen in a nightdress. Sometimes they have makeup and bangles on, don't they? Anyway, that's a nightdress version of Bowen floating down the river there. The Shannon, of course. Tony likes Shannon, who's coming on. And they're perhaps the two most famous that we know of in the folklore. Now, the rivers have brought us wonderful visions, inspiring folklore stories. And of course, that artist of the Bowen in a nightdress got some kind of vision there. But more important, a respect and deep relationship to rivers, the water. All water is essential. Now, one of the divisions of common law compared to Indigenous counsel has been the concept of ownership. Ownership of land, ownership of forests, ownership of water, ownership of mineral reserves. But the Indigenous approach, as you're familiar, is that the people and the Earth's resources, they all have an equal place, especially water. So the common law approach is that anything is owned or traded, is put into enslavement, is controlled by the person claiming to be the owner. And I've mentioned there's this local challenge in County Meath, where a meat slaughtering and processing plant has applied for planning permission to dump an obscene amount of slaughterhouse effluent into the precious River Boyne. And you may well know the River Boyne has been the source, as I'm saying. There's another Bowen. There's another imagery of Bowen. So we got the River Boyne and the Bowen stories as well. So on the surface, the gossip and media, they can easily translate any protest of dumping into the Boyne as being, again, we're back to the sort of bunch of hippies mentality. There's a beautiful Boyne there. But they say the hippies are getting in the way of local jobs, local economy. I found a hippie post. Just in case you've forgotten what hippies are like. They're the people protesting on the Boyne. Anyway, that's the image that people, I think, have. Anyway, when really there's a huge challenge on the Indigenous heritage of water being threatened. And really, it's the connection to the water that makes the economy possible. And that is forgotten about. So there's a beautiful picture of the Boyne. It's still passionately regarded by many people as being a free body of life, and it carries that flowing realm of ancestry. But by the slaughtering house, it's as if the Boyne itself is being treated like a piece of meat. A slave that is owned and can be treated as a lifeless object without respect, somewhat like our approach to toilets. Now, during the recent Save the Boyne campaign, there was a beautiful video produced that I shared here on Nature Folklore. You might remember the cover of it. There we go. And this is included a few lines from a poem, Emisha Bowen, I Am Bowen. And today, I'm so delighted because our first guest on Nature Folklore, and she's in the back room patiently waiting for me to stop talking, is Siobhan Dupree. And she's the author of that poem. And I'll get my headphones ready for the entry. And she's going to share the full poem with us in both the native Irish and in a somewhat limiting English translation. Not her fault, it's just the way the English translates, of course. And I trust you'll be able to get between the translated words of this and actually feel the flow of what is about to be guided here through Siobhan's words. And I've invited Siobhan to briefly introduce Wild Irish Retreats as well. So she'll talk about that. It's something her and her partner hosts. So this is a permaculture experience, plus a lot of what we share on Nature Folklore. And I'll get Siobhan on now. Hey, right. Hello, good morning. I'll get rid of the picture. There we go. Siobhan!
Hello, John.
What an introduction, because sorry about that, because I'm playing around trying to get stuff going in the same way. But it's lovely to have you live.
It's lovely to be here on Easter Sunday.
Yes, and you're very bold. It's very good for doing this. And you offered to share in Siobhan live with us in both languages. So what would you like to say about how you came about writing this?
Sarah invited me in the first instance, Sarah Humble, and I wasn't connected with the Save the Boyne campaign, but when I looked into it, then I was very motivated, like anyone would be. I've been writing about cows for years, about the sacred cow and Bo Finne, and I have a long story with them, and I feel their pain very much, and I feel like the fate of the whole country is tied up in the fate of our cows, because it's such a huge part of our economy, how we treat them, and it was such a huge part of our culture, cows always, and the debasement and the degradation of cows now is sort of mirroring the degradation of the Irish agricultural culture, the Irish connection with land, you could say, and I see them there now. And so I had written about the sacred cow. I have about 3 poems actually, and a desire even to make a longer video with those poems. So Boann then was it was like the next chapter for me, going into the mythology of Boann herself, the cow goddess, so you could say this is like the last, maybe not the last part, maybe just a continuation of that journey that I've had with the cow in Ireland, and that trauma that is in our psyche as well, because the farmers are carrying the trauma of what they have to do to their animals, and this roaring, this grieving that the mother cow does when she's separated from her young calf. They're separated at about 3 days, they give them the beastings and then they're gone. And this mother would grieve then she could grieve for 3 or 4 months, with this roar, this nightly roar, so then when I heard that, that this abattoir where these young calves are killed, is then going to pump the effluent from, so you can imagine then and water we know carries the imprint of what has happened. So the slaughter, then that water would be imprinted with the slaughter of those calves, and then would be pumped in 400,000 litres per week. If I recall, that was the huge number, through this pipeline into the Boann River. It's an obscenity you can't even conceive of, that you would have to swallow slugum sheer an ufos. I wrote, I swallow the ufos, like the awfulness, of all these murdered cows.
Well, I'm finding fascinating, and I should have realized that where I live, it's surrounded by water, surrounded by lochs, surrounded by rivers. And I forget, you're in Meath, surrounded by a lot of cows and very rich pastures for cows. And the effect on the Boyne, and we know some people that actually have a farm by the Boyne, and they've actually put a barrier, which is really lovely. They've actually done a barrier between their fields of trees and so forth, and the Boyne as a protection. So it's intriguing, that your emphasis is on the cows and the treatment of cows in relation to the river. I'm finding this fascinating. I just thought, it's just to learn something from your approach, that you're in cow country and you have a cow passion. That's lovely.
Well, I was in cow country, but now I'm in West Kerry.
Okay.
Country. But there's cows everywhere. I mean, you can't go, there's still cows here, it's I think we all have a relationship with them, you know, where we encounter them. If you go out for a walk in this country, you encounter them, and you either run past them, kind of scurry past a bit fast, or you go nice and slow and you go into them, or, you know, the Irish people and the cow, you know, like I say in the Bo Finne, like it was she that made chieftains of us and brides of us and lifted us out of obscurity. She, the first surety. So she was what gave us wealth as tribes initially, the cow. You know, that's where our wealth came in when we decided to settle. That was our currency. And she made brides of us. She was our dowry. The cow was our dowry. And she was the first surety. She was the first insurance. Like, you hold on to my cow, and, you know, so she lifted us out of obscurity. She elevated us into sort of tribal fiefdoms as well, you know, out from that evolution from nomadic. So I mean, the cow is our currency, and it was always our currency, and it still is. You know, they say 90%, 98% of our export. You know, it's still. And how Boann, being the goddess of the cow, and being that sacred river who circles all the sacred sites, it's not such a long river, not like the Shannon, you know, but it circles all those sacred places, essentially, in those places which are microcosms of the whole country, you know. So while the Shannon is sort of like going all the way, is the big long vein all the way down, like, you know, the Boann is the aorta shorter and going just as far as Louth there, you know. But it's those two together, they were coming quite together as well, the Boann and the Shannon, and their stories are very, I mean, naturally enough, where this goes, the rights of this river returned, and not, you know, the rights are to be returned. They were there initially. Her rights are to be returned as a sentient being. She was always recognized as a sentient being by our Celtic ancestors. This is not a new thing. It was just forgotten, and it has to come back. You know, and there is precedent for it, and it will happen. It's just a question of how long it takes for the collective consciousness of Ireland to sort of reach that level where this will just be a normal happening, you know,
right.
like it was.
So your poem is the one thing I'm kind of getting excited about hearing.
Okay, well, this is an excerpt. Well, I say it's an excerpt because, you know, they say a poem is never finished, just abandoned. And this one certainly was abandoned because it was really on a timeline. We had to get it in before the submission. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll write a few words. That will be no problem. And I sat down, and there was just so much coming and coming and coming. And it just sort of got away from me. So in the end, I just gave what I had, and we went with that, you know. And even at that, they only used a couple of verses in the video. So this is longer than this is the first public reading of that longer version, which is a shorter version of the longer version still. Is Misha Boann. Is Misha Mila Vlian the Vorstach, I'm Shrachata, I'm Shrashtanach. Rokus of Winche, Kurhus of Wir, Anala, Igangrien, is Meg Dal Sir. Idro Kunde Lu, Iko Dlu Hu, is Skammel. Squilte, Fagtamel. Timpel go shiri, ik feed em Jonson ri I moorskeel, o movel. Sneam, factoren ider down, soon is suite ik ahru faun. Is misje an artere, don krie moor prabach, ik kreve amach, ik bahu kocher bevellach. Is misje Boann moher an gauen, eestle moskeel, buur an auen. Is misje Boann. Biola lán, fullán, lehan mo cramán, I cur haar muile isk, on funche a níos, vies, Ian glan, shal, glissernach, gal. Is Misha Boann. Kele le nachten, agus lenan dagde, stad sé an aum is vi a ruin kemedte, fui chelt san áit nefe, nochtehe, fui gach grene, o mo vrin. Eingus, an tain dúl a bhui a gwyn. Is Misha Boann a hori gnás de gnéis a cuig túhul timpel tobar ségus. Tar húl fla húl an dúl ag snávs na chéadfi, báig me I flodam a fashion, is dordig me sa chlasach. Is Misha Boann. Kosse in irde, tras na speer na hihe, ag trawe slí an bó blacht, gan is me gemacht, na réal tíni, ag tal o machine. is an dorachadis a bhí tacht I mo chuine. Is mi se boin. Cuéh nóir an bradán, madra isce, alle is crúdín. Cuéh nóir an bit ag súlacht, scéan súlach ag impí. Is mi se boin a coigh macara na bhí, an fér glas faoi statisticí talvíochta, acnamíochta, mo ní ná ór díalta. Gomíoch píbre is píap líana íochta. An trad ná siúnta, is seamlas, dúnta. Is mi se boin, clib mo clúas, spruc tagask luas, mo vlachtanis. Is mi se boin, míle bblion de bháisteach I cód lú hú, cericéad míle lítar de trú lú, le píap líana I mo féthe, nach gréasta na déile. Ach, cíam tacht an léach, cíam garfáistí fréach, I measc muinter mo háite a chúla mé cráite ag bartú cuéige clíomh ór, ag tart a gho gurí mo glór. Is lór, is lór. Is mi se boin, sro gal farge is snachte, ag sile go sírí, mo fuil, is mo vlachtanis. Bin an gail an son. Agus seo hé as verle, so this is a hasty enough translation, but I am Boan, I am 1,000 years of rain, the eternal chart, born in the spring and laid to rest at sea. I am Boan in eternity. Inhaled by the sun as I journey east, towards Louth, condensed in a cloud and then released for a while and around for all time, old myth in contemporary lines. I wander along borders between spaces, quiet and disquiet, my changing faces. I am the artery of the big pulsing heart, branching out, sustaining all in my path. I am Boan, mother of the calf. Listen to my story in the roar of the river. I am Boan, full-lipped, wide-hipped, overflowing with fish up from the source. I was pristine once, glistening, bright. I am Boan, wife of Nachten, lover of Dagda, who stopped time to conceal our crime, hidden in the sacred place, revealed by a shaft of life, light from my womb, Ingus, our one desire. I am Boan, the broke convention for sex that went anti-clockwise around Sages' well, fertile, generous craving, swimming in the senses. I drowned in a flood of passion and rose in the collapse. I am Boan, galloping across the night sky, carving the Milky Way, not noticing as I go the stars that lactate from my nipples. I am Boan, guardian of the salmon, the otter, swan, and kingfisher, guardian of biology, diversity, wide-eyed pleading. I am Boan that nourished the plains of Meath and the green grass underneath, agricultural statistics and economic logistics closed inside the abattoir, the national herd, my golden calves sold to pay the piper. I am Boan with a tag in my ear and a tagus target on my lactation. I am Boan. I am 1,000 years of rain, condensing 400,000 litres polluting. The pipeline in my veins, the divine has been profaned, but I see the coming of the champion. I see the grandchildren of Freach amidst the people of my place that heard my cry, brandishing 50 golden swords, giving voice to my story. I am Boan, stream, steam, ocean and snow, endless cycle, eternal flow.
Oh, wow. Oh, what stunning reading. That was so beautifully presented in both languages. Thank you so much for that, Siobhan. That's a real treat for us. And a minute or two about Wild Irish Retreats. I haven't put the banner up for what it is.
No, you're grand. Yeah. So Wild Irish is a community that myself and my partner run, an Irish language rewilding community. And people come on these weekends down here to Kerry or to another place in Clare, and we do various things. This year we've kind of gone into more ancestral skills. Dermot's actually this as we speak doing hide tanning, deer hide tanning, with a group up in Clare now. I'll do a creative retreat in May with women, and this will be using the natural pigments that are all around us, and also just the wood, the hazel wood. So it's how to make art without all this material that's all around us. We don't have to go buying plastics in the shop,
Exactly.
And we learn from a beautiful woman, a Welsh woman, and Michelle from Tang. And also I will do poetry with people, and again drawing on the wildflowers and the medicine around us as inspiration. Carol, our third facilitator, will do, she's a wild food forager, and she makes these amazing balms and cosmetics and very healing lotions, and she'll do that from scratch. I mean, she'll press the hazelnuts from the hazelwood to get the oil and get the beeswax from her own hive. So this is literally creating beautiful practical things, but only with what's in front of you. So it's drawing on that abundance, and this is sort of nature connection is what we do, but it's all also through Irish. This is
That's wonderful.
Through Irish.
Well, I'd definitely love to come back to you in the summer for that, but thanks for the introduction. If you can type in the web address before me, because I won't be able to do it to the end of the show, but thanks for the poetry, the Bowen, Misha Bowen. That was absolutely beautiful. And I hope we'll get you back soon. Thank you for using some of your Easter Sunday. Thanks, Siobhan. Wasn't that beautiful? Oh, brilliant. Absolutely stunning. And Chandler, who's coming on later. Thank you, Siobhan. Your poetry and reading among the most beautiful and profound, wasn't it? It was a real storytelling poetry. Absolutely stunning. Such passion. Such a huge dilemma from Claire, beef industry and nature. Breezy, these are earlier ones. Try to live without a cow would be like trying to hang your hat at the end of a rainbow. That's a great description. That's a very breezy bit of poetry as well. Brilliant. Without water, there'd be no life, is what she also says. And even achieve Seattle. Breezy's really on the ball here. Continuing to contaminate your bed, and one night you will suffocate in your own waste. That's great. And Sharon's good morning from Scotland. And we've got Alan doing Easter balloons. So that's great. And Andrea from Rosewood good morning from Florida. Wonderful that you're here. And Siobhan says, I can't, in the private messaging, I can't bring them up, unfortunately, but she thanks you, Chandler, for your beautiful comment. And Wild Irish Retreat, let's see if I can cut and paste this onto the comments here. I might be able to do that. I should be able to do that for you. There we go. Transfer from one message place to another, and there you go. It's there in the chat for you. It should be in the chat. There it goes. It's somewhere in there. Okay. I hope it got in there as somewhere anyway. I did throw it in. Hopefully that's come into it. All right. Now, I would have loved to have continued with much more folklore, with the passion and request to return to rivers and lakes. The whole issue of establishing equality of rights. The water has the same rights as us humans, but I got to move on with other things because we've got the lovely guests as well. I'll share this with another folklore series at the end of May. We got Women and Water at the end of May, so that we'll bring that back up then. I'm absolutely sure. Anyway, on with the 3 trees of the bard, which I tend to do on an Easter Sunday. And I'm just lining up what's being said here. That's right. Let's get on to the photos again. 3 strains of the bard. Now, to quote, the 3 trees are the healer, healer of each wounded warrior, comforter of each fine woman, and guiding refrain over the blue water with sweet-sounding music. And that apparently comes from the ancient book of the O'Connor Don. That's a translation from that. Now, in any story, if you're writing a novel, writing a short story, a book, or a theatre play, or even a movie script, there's a format that flows through all of these. And I love to consider the ancient three trees as part of this creativity formula of writing. I couldn't find anything on three trees. So I think that mystery of the three hairs all joined together, forming the triangle with their ears in the middle, is the best thing I could come up with, the whole feeling of this mindset of the three trees. But as I like to visualize many situations in the Brown law type mindset, I tend to think in the three trees as well. Now, the three trees, the enchanting strains of the bard through story, poem, song, and music. And most stories, they settle quite gentle, don't they? They settle in a calm situation. Even when I told my version of the Humpty Dumpty story, it's a calm situation. So we have the jauntry. And with Humpty Dumpty, he'd be sat on a wall, very content. So that's Humpty going through the jauntry moment as well. But I suppose, like most of us, the way we were before the COVID came flying in, and with stories even in the ancient bard days, they're not going to get much people's interest if the story is going to stay calm, are they? You're not going to sell anything that way. You've got to have a gripping challenge come along to get people's attention. And the challenge, it could be, yeah, I've got Humpty in the jauntry situation there. But you can have that shocking moment like this. There's Humpty, he's just about to fall off the wall there. The karma's gone. Disaster's about to happen. And we're then into the gold tree moment. And there's not only a sense of challenge, there's shock, there's despondency, there's melancholy. And we question, how do we get into this mess? How do we get into this pickle? And some people describe jauntry as light and the gold tree as darkness. But I think I'm being a bit unfair to darkness myself. But one thing that has irritated me ever since I was a child is how people seem to lock themselves into a melancholy realm. And we sort of get this a bit over Easter, I believe. To me, when I first read of the crucifixion, it's as if people stopped their lives there. It's as if they stopped Easter there. I got a crucifixion picture that you might be familiar with. There you go. There's a crucifixion for you. It's as if we have a belief in enforcing the end game. And we seem to be currently getting this expressed through the whole range of conspiracy theories seems to be all about that to me. Even the attitude with burials, the grave and the body being placed in it. And that's the end of the person. But with everything, I tend to instinctively try to visualize always a resurrection going on in any situation. And this seems to be verified also by basic physics. Take the first law of thermodynamics. That energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed into something else. So that's the transformation realm. And so there is that beautiful third strain, the sanctuary, the enchantment of the sleeping and the dreaming. So there we go. That's the three strains there. And with stories, everything starts calm and commend. The challenges then erupt, such as someone becomes ill, a disaster happens, the home, we got poor Breezy, a poor home caught on fire, and even death as well. But to me, there's always a continuance to make this cycle. And many modern stories seem to leave us hanging in the disaster and don't seem to find a resolve or a movement away from that. But to me, resolve and movement from challenge needs entry into the consciousness, into our imagination, our inspiration, and our dreaming. And then suddenly, everything seems to surface, and we get this feeling, yes, now I get it. This is what we can do. Now, it reminds me of the Christian teaching. God always provides. You see that in various formats. God always provides. And I was talking to a monk about this, and there was some situation he'd been through, and he continued my sentence when I said, I use the word God for his benefit in a way. I said, oh, God always provides. And he carried that on. Indeed, he does, always at the last minute. So after that calm challenge disaster, the solutions and resolve stories come along, and everybody lives happily ever after, or so the story says. But as you know, people do not just end up living happily ever after. If we did continue living happily ever after, we would not know what the good times were. We wouldn't be able to recognize them, would we? It's as if we need the gold tree to understand, the Jean tree to have experience, and then we have the Son tree as the twilight zone that transports us between those two realms of living. It's a sort of day and night situation with the twilight. Now, as a wee child, if I told my version of Humpty Dumpty not being, well, if I went on with the full story in this talent show, and if I'd gone on talking about Humpty Dumpty coming off a wall, getting all splattered with absolutely no hope of recovery, but to me, the amazing power of resurrection seemed more appropriate to make that whole story something wonderful. And for now, so I'd like to introduce our next regular guest after saying all that stuff. We got B in the background of Sir Julian Smith, and I do apologize that I never got the websites up as well. But anyway, B's in here. Good morning, B. Good afternoon, B. And
Good
I'm not
afternoon,
here.
John.
Oh, you got the mute off. Absolutely wonderful. How are you and Tony this Easter afternoon? Are you being very Eastery? Are you making did you make a chocolate cake?
You always ask me about cake. I did not bake a cake.
Trifle!
I made, as per request, trifle, which was actually
brilliant.
his birthday request. He did get trifle. He did get cake, just not on his birthday. And I'm never, ever going to live it down because he keeps on mentioning that. Although he was very brave on the day, once he got on, on camera, the truth came spilling out. But yeah, it was a very busy week. And we did launch the poetry map the following day. And so things were a bit soft. So,
wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
What have you got for us today?
Well, I have one or possibly two poems. When Siobhan was talking about cows and cattle country and living in cattle country, it made me consider a poem I've written, which is because I'm a townie. I'm city born, townie bred, and then 20 years ago I landed in a rural area and had the whole learning curve to go, I needed to learn how to become a country mouse, and there are cattle and sheep all around where we live, and we live in the town of Dowra, which is famous for its mart. And so I just thought, as a little addendum to the one poem I was intending to read today, is I would just read a poem about a local cow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's called Wee Bo Fin. Wee being
wonderful,
little, Bo being cow, Fin being white. So it's a little white cow. Wee Bo Fin in the field, looking outside it through the high hawthorn hedge, under the watchful eyes of your massive mammy. Would you look at your wobbly knees? For all your half-ton weight, you kick up your heels as gleeful as the little lammies in yonder pasture. Ah, sweet wee heifer, they would say of ye, eating spring's sweet new grass, seasoned with buttercup and cow parsley, its kissing cousins hogweed and hemlock. Your mammy's swollen udders, her mooing, mooing, herself alone inside the high hawthorn hedge, calling and calling, calling. So that is my poem for Wee Bowfin and the reality of country living. So my Easter poem that I picked out is one that is called Metaphorically Speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Metaphorically speaking, love is a caterpillar that wants to be a butterfly as it trundles along, all hungry, lumbering woolly and fuzzy, longing to say goodbye to its sluggish locomotive state, because love wants to have its wings, to coast on gentle thermals in sunshine, to sup on scented roses, or even the bees' leftover nectar, because love has the memory of the crackle in the moment when the pupa snapped open, the shock of being out of its body, because love is really only in it for the eggs, or so Woody Allen said in voiceover at the end of Annie Hall. Love is the egg of its eye, also the drag, the crawl, cocoon, and shelter its wings, because we're all really Sumatran butterflies fluttering chaos across the airwaves, changing everything utterly just because. So that is my Easter offering to you today.
Stunningly good, absolutely wonderful. Trying to get myself in here. Yeah, thank you very much as usual. Pure magic. We're really the level of poetry on the show just goes up and up and up in each episode. That was beautifully done, B. Absolutely. And we got B's hubby, the cake man, Tony, very soon. So thank you, B. And of course, can't wait to get you back again. Have a wonderful
I will vacate
Easter.
the seat so that the musician himself can
have to go for a paging.
Right. Well, thanks. We'll be back in a couple of minutes for Tony. Thanks. Brilliant as usual, wasn't it? Comments. Let's see what you've been saying. There's Davina's here. Davina Sinclair, good to see you. Computer acting up. I know they're feeling well today. Anyway, catch up as well later. Spring equinox time for yourself. And Terry loves Siobhan. Incredibly beautiful. And Claire, Radiant Bee, so evocative as beautiful, as stunning as usual. There we go. And Kate's in, Kate Cloud Sparks, greetings from Iowa and Chandler. Oh, she said the thank you for Siobhan. Poetry amongst beautiful and profound. I've heard that was a real treat with Siobhan as well. Brilliant, wonderful. Okay, now there's a sort of a joke that sometimes haunts me. It's a few years old now, but it's when Bill Maher equipped that. I think I got a support picture for this. Let's see. His quip was that it was to do with people assembling and militias assembling. It was somewhere in North Carolina, I think, and he was saying. It's Republicans that form militias. The Democrats, they form drum circles. And it's something that kind of haunts me, that phrase, Democrats form militias, plus Democrats. I'm getting it mixed up so much. Sometimes how his joke goes. Yeah, Republicans form militias, Democrats form drum circles. That was his phrase of that. But what's echoing with me when I hear that is... last year, we had a Nature Folklore discussion with Seamus and Sarah of the Fairy Council of Ireland. And one of the profound things they said in that chat was that each of us have a bit of fairiness within us. But sometimes it's a challenge actually getting to know and realize this, and more of a challenge to actually express it. I think of a running theme on Nature Folklore that's to encourage us to connect and express a bit more of the fairiness in our lives. We did this with Bards in the Woods, and certainly with the poets that come on board with us today. Absolutely fabulous. And I hope in the choir that you're inspired to go off to your sanctuaries, do the same thing. Now, when I was a child, doing my first reading and reading about Jesus, I had no concept of religion. I feel that what I was reading about in the Bible and the other texts, it could have been of someone who could have been expressing a bit of fairiness. It's as if Jesus was expressing a bit of fairiness. The people talking about him were expressing their bit of fairiness too. So this was all before he was forced into ascension into the she world. I'll put that up again for you. Anyway, all major religions seem to start with a symbolized person who lives a similar life, yet somehow the church systems, they're like institutions. They become like the militia, a style of command, pyramids again. So through this, I'm not referring, with the churches, I'm not referring to the community and the fellowships of local churches, which actually I feel usually a wonderful human response. And I always think the best activity the churches do is when they do the afternoon picnics. I think I've got a church picnic there. The morning meeting, of course, is all institution. But the afternoon, it's a chance of local fellowship, connection, communication, and counsel. And we did that at Karakori, of course, when this nature folklore stuff was done in the afternoons there. Now, it gives us opportunity to leap out of our boot camp linear obedience, and we get into more free-flowing acts. And when we get more free-flowing, that, I feel, is when we're sharing our little bit of fairiness. And this is going around in circles, attempting to offer perhaps a bit more enlightenment. But to me, that's part of the beneficial interpretation of the resurrection, engaging in moments of feeling free, even reborn from the injustices of politically manifested human-made laws and the institutions that we live within to follow these rules. I believe we all have that ability to reconnect again. And then we find our sanctuary and we find our ways to do this, where we ascend into some timeless wonder, engagement and connection with the flow of life. That's why we go and jump in the water. We go out to the woods. We do things in the garden, and I suppose that's our ascension. Now, someone posted in the Facebook within the Wonderful Create, the New Normal group, that's their logo there, and claiming that when she went on a walk, the trees talked to her, but they talked to her actually through a worded emotion, not through a particular language. And that emotion came to her to turn back and go home. That was a feeling, she said, the trees gave her. So she did. She turned around, she went home, and it turned out she avoided being stuck in a snowstorm in the dark, which is what would have happened if she had carried on walking. So in this new normal group, she asked, were the trees actually talking to her at that point? Now, other than people in the group, they replied with their stories, which were similar experiences. And this reminded me of the Thai people. I think it was 2004. They had that horrible tsunami. And some of those Thai people, when they were interviewed, they actually said that the trees told them in advance of the tsunami to head for the hills. Now, my own offering interpretation of this was, it wasn't the trees, just the trees talking. It was our ability to tune in to all that's around us, the flow of life, and everything around us, such as this. We do a bit of tree hugging, don't we? And we may think this is the trees talking because we may think of the trees as objects because they're so big compared with us. And here's Tony doing that very thing, who's coming up in a minute. But trees, they can make quite a noise, can't they? In the wind and even in a fresh breeze, the trees are making a noise. But when we tune in, as if we suddenly become instinctive. We become instinctive weather forecasters. When we listen to nature, we listen to the trees and the animals and things going on. The one thing we interpret is how the weather may well be changing at that moment. And that we're doing just the same as what all other mammals are doing. The birds, the insects, the reptiles, they're all being sensory to the changes around. So everything living becomes a weather forecaster. And we react and we move what we feel is the best to do. So that's my interpretation of the trees talking. But I think our institutionalized education suppresses a lot of that feeling from us due to its linear ways, like that base of the pyramid I was talking about. So we sort of react to according to what we read and write. And I do love the human ability to read and write. And that's why we have poetry in a way. But I feel we must never lose that connection to or deny those instincts that are part of the cyclical spiral and waveform perceptions that we are also interpreters of. And that's how we express our bit of fairiness. So that's one reason why I love the increase in the current forestry schools. Every year there's more and more and more of them, and all the hands-on biodiversity eco-education, like the wild Irish retreats that Siobhan was talking earlier, that type of thing, because all that education nurtures and encourages our instincts. But how many of us on Easter Sunday actually think about resurrection? We've got the family around, we've got the picnics, we've got not so much today, I suppose, but we have the suppers together, we have the fun together. I think we think more probably about eggs, don't we? Bunnies and picnics on the sunny, if it was a sunny day, but a good shared meal where we can. And there's some bunnies having a shared meal to get us into the spirit. But really, all a bit of fairiness, isn't it? And all that sharing is our lovely ways of sharing it. A bit of fairiness in our own way, fun things we do on Easter Sundays, and another one there. There we go. That's the sort of thing I think we think of more than resurrection. But in ascending from crucifixion moments of our lives into more like this sort of heavenly sanctuary of fantasy with what and who we honestly love, we surround ourselves with the things we love, people we love, and the situations we love for a while. So now he should be in his seat. I think he's sitting waiting there. We have the wonderful, ever popular and intriguing and inspiring Tony Cookson. He's on. Got him a bit late, but let's say hello to Tony. Hello, Tony. Let's get you on. Good afternoon to you there. Is it winter there?
It feels like winter, John. It feels like
Right.
This is the hat.
Right. Oh, look at that. You brightened up today. There you go. Fantastic. That's brilliant. Well, how's it all going with you in Dowra there? Because
it's great. It's been great. You know, apart from today, which is wet, so I'm in the garden most of the time. So being inspired by yourself to create an extraordinary sacred space. That's really, and I love doing that. Really.
Yeah, an extreme bit of fairiness, which is fabulous. Anyway, what have you got for us today? I think you've kept that a secret from me. Is it a story, a song?
I have kept it. Yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I was intrigued by the word resurrection, and I thought, oh wow, that's an interesting word, actually. So, oh, there's a cat behind me. So I'm going to do what I've done a story on the program, and I've done a song on the program, and I've done a poem. So I'm going to do what can be called a poem song, right? And this is a poem I love, and you'll recognize it, John. I won't tell you what it is yet, but for me, it's a song poem about the experience of resurrection, or what I would call spiritual awakening. And there are different ways that happens to different people. Sometimes through death of a close person, illness, or other ways, but there are positive ways. And one of the ways is through creative inspiration. So this is a story, song, poem about someone who goes out and because they feel inspired, and then they go and they go fishing in the dark for something they think they understand, and it turns out not to be exactly what they thought it was. They are graced an experience of revelation, let's call it that way. They transcend their sense of personal self and discover what Thomas Merton, the mystic, calls the true self. And in this poem song, that is represented by a young woman who calls this hero, and it could be a heroine, by her name, his name. And that's not your personal name. That's the name given to you by universal intelligence. And anyway, you can't, but anyway, once you're awakened, you can't stay there. So it leaves you, or you leave it, more to the point. And then you go searching in the hollow lands and hilly lands of time and space for an experience beyond time and space, with hope that one day, once again, you come to experience that revelation. And then, as in all stories, you live happily ever after. And as with all good stories, the hero or heroine comes back to invite others into this experience. So, with said enough about the song, I wonder if you've already discovered it. It's by one of my favorite poets, W.B. Yeats. I went out to the hazelwood because a fire was in my head, and picked and peeled the hazel wand, and tied a berry to a thread. When white wasps were on the wing, moth like stars were flickering out. I threw the berry in a stream, caught myself a silver thread. When I'd laid it on the floor and bent to blow the fire flame, something rustled on the floor. Someone call me by my name, my name. Call me by my name. glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran, faded through the brightening air. Through the brightening air. Now I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands. I will find out where she is gone and kiss her lips and take her hand. And take her hand. Walk among long mountain grass and pluck till times and times are gone. The silver apples of the moon, the golden apple of the sun, and pluck till time and times are done. The silver apples of the moon, golden apples of the sun. Song of the Wandering Longest.
Thanks very much for that, Tony. Very relaxing, great interpretation. So thanks for joining us again, and we'll look forward to you being back. And
yeah,
I trust you'll have
more cake.
Yes, have a wonderful Easter afternoon, the rest of it, and
yeah,
you won't be back in the. And I imagine you're indoors today, so have a good one. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
See you again, Tony. There we go. Tony Cookson, a little bit different today. A song from him and an interpretation. And Claire says that was very relaxing too, mesmerizing, wonderful too. And Terry Slack earlier was enjoying, if I can get it up. There you go. Wonderful reading of work. Thanks very much. Now, as this year's Resurrection Trais episode is falling into our Permaculture Living series, and I'm thinking how the three trees translates into our adjustment towards permaculture living, since it's part of the series. And there we go, another permaculture living kind of picture. There's certainly the Galtree melancholy reflections when considering the human impact of our effects on land, air, and water. And we question, what can we do to help create change? And we can get overwhelmed when that vision of that goes larger than life. And even when we think, can we be a very spiritual and change the whole universe with this? As some people think of this, let's bring about change. Let's gather everybody together. Let's get on the keyboards and gather these people. To me, that's like an attempt to become a spiritual guru, trying to round up masses of people to inspire change. Certainly the thought is good, but the reaction is generally a response to feeling care. a person who does this, they've just got an extreme emotion, empathy, and they just want to gather up people right now, make the change. And it's all about care rather than trying to gather a bunch of people for control. But our approach, either way, whether it's care, extreme care like that, or control, to me, it's still the same attitude that seems to have messed things up in the first place, if you agree with that. So I believe the next step from this, the sauntery, the dreaming, the reflection without bias, reflection without conditions, and reflections without control, is being in a space where suddenly it perhaps seems our spirit is connecting. And I view this as a cultural process of changing, where we're changing from that whole living of the pyramid style structure into one, the pyramid of the command center that people serve unto, into one that is all connecting, spiraling, combining in a circle. So that to me is a woven permaculture living way of life. It's all about community and fair shares. So we flow into the third strange geometry, the joy, and that's the delight of discovering that little small things that we do, small caring things, are the things that matter. And it's as if this is shared and spread through the loose human network, and it creates a web of better caring and connected living. And I had a lovely picture. There was a beautiful meme I saw today that illustrated that, but oh no, it didn't come up in the photo, so sorry. But anyway, centralization, imagine that being broken down and into something like this. I mean, that's a real decentralized, trusting network situation. It's all about integration, biodiversity, and the idea what people come along, they learn how to do things in that garden. They go off to their gardens, they do things, they bring people along, they learn to do the same things. And so you've got this outward weaving going on. That's the vision I tend to have with this. And nothing there is centralized. Anyway, that's as much I think I better say on this, because we've got one more guest coming up. Our next guest, another lovely regular on Nature Folklore, is Chandler Nichols. And she was going to be live, but she's got a storm in her area, which is upsetting her internet services. So I'm going to bring up a video of her instead. So give me a second to get this up. And this is Chandler as well. I'm not sure what she's doing, so I'll leave it for her to explain herself. Chandler Nichols, everyone. There we go. There should be a Chandler. It takes a second for her to come up. I think she is there. Here we go.
The storyteller's curse. Every spirit is blessed by the divine. The falcon has flight. The horse has freedom. The tree has wisdom. The salmon has the sea to command. The mountain has the power of the sky and land. What then is the gift of humans, who have no claws, wings, or fins? Ours is the gift of the gods, this gift of creation, of magical laws. Yet such a gift balances with the curse, for we live in but a contrasting universe. Inside my mind, the string of dreams strums indefinitely to the forests and streams. For in those thin places my simple mind, inspired by the natural treasures I find, brews fantastical stories and overflown, ponders restlessly to make them known. Alas, who shall hearken to these worlds and worlds of tales, these parallel lives my soul inhabits across the veil? To the 1,000 names I take and the 1,000 forms my body makes, to those endless stories of love and dark journeys of the soul, as vibrant as life, if not more so. I see it all, experience it all in my mind's eye, feel all my senses, for those worlds are alive. How can I paint the details, the soft words, the harsh monsters, and the grand scheme of a timeless adventure? How might I share it with thee? Would they even listen to me? How could I ever tell you what it feels like to fly on falcon wings or run like the wolf or the river stream? How to capture this aura around, however eerie or profound? How can I scribe a living dream, one hardly stagnant, yet real fantasy, tempestuous with all senses, more alive than life's consensus, this alternate universe in which I reside in dream and in waking life? Oh, I shall try. A picture to draw, a poem to write. Woe, I wear my emotions and my words, praying for these stories to be heard. For this is the gift of the cruel dream harper, to be lost in imagined worlds with the curse of the storyteller.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. Chandler Nichols there, and we got the video because I'm not sure about the internet. So thanks very much. Just to let you know what's coming up, as I say, thank you for subscribers, for the subscription through Patreon. If you don't like using PayPal, people have been using the Buy Me a Coffee. You can just use your card on that. It helps cover the monthly payments and other services that I use to make this show possible. So coming up, what have we got coming up? A few weeks, continuing with the Nature Folklore sessions. Get some pictures up for you. They're not coming up too quickly. Continuing the biodiversity living, certainly part 2 is the underworld part 2 next week. And so we bring the land and water together in suggestions for manifesting and permaculture living with the folklore to back that up. Then on the 1st of May, it's May Day and the start of our 3-part Beltner series. And the first episode is going to be a fun one. It's going to go through the customs and traditions of May Day on this church calendar day of May the 1st. And then one that I love doing on the next one on the 8th of May is the Ashlings. Well, we've got the Ashlings and the Green Man. Fantastic fantasy. I probably won't say much about that for now, but there's one for men, one for women, and it's folklore of our intense desires and how they are unexpectedly revealed. So that's the 8th of May. And then one that people seem to love, if I can move that one, is 15th of May. That's the third one. It's fairy stories for May. And there's a fairy tree, a hawthorn tree in full blossom. And of course, there's lots of lusty and romantic folklore around the hawthorn, and that will be included in that. So that's what's coming up. And the fairies are jumping all over me on that one. And just beautiful, Chandler, says Claire. So thank you all for being with us on this Easter Sunday afternoon. Our amazing guests today, weren't they amazing? Siobhan Napier, B. Smith, Tony Cookson, Chandler Nichols. And if you're watching this after the broadcast as an archive video, please keep your comments going because I do return from time to time to answer these comments. Subscribe below. You see the bell icon if you haven't done already. I'll let you know what's coming up next Sunday. So I think we've had a very good session on that. Anybody else got anything to say? Any more comments before I say my farewell? So thank you, everyone. Enjoy a wonderful, safe week full of the usual calm, wonderful, your inspirations, your visions for Easter, your fun for Easter, the way of regeneration and resurrections for yourself for the summer, all those enchantments. Have a wonderful week ahead, everybody. So until next Sunday, play well. And that's all I have from me. Thank you very much. There we go. And I think that's